Welcome to the Market Musings podcast, where today we welcome John Teeling, who is the chairman of Arkle Resources. Hi, John. Thank you very much for taking the time out to talk to us today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Well, good to have you. And Kenny, how are you?
Yes, I'm very good as well, John. It's a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Obviously, you're based in Ireland. Whereabouts in Ireland you calling from?
I'm actually in Dublin. I'm just looking out a window here at the sea. It's a relatively cool but nice afternoon.
Yeah, I'm up in Scotland. It's bright and sunny, but it's freezing. I've actually had to put the heat.
Yeah, well, we're a little better.
A little better, yeah. Mark, and you're in Holland. What's it like there?
I'm in The Hague. It is it's wet and grey, but it's not cold. And actually, I'm sweating in my office today. The computer must be working hard or something, because I'm quite warm, which is nice because I'm used to being cold in my north-facing house in York. So it's a nice change. That's our early podcast weather report from around the globe.
Yeah, good stuff. As I said, John, it's great to have you on. And what we like to do in these podcasts is, rather than we'll talk about Arkle Resources at the end, but we like to find out a lot about the director, what you've done in the past, your various business successes and, what your early childhood was like, where you were born, what school you went to, university, what your first job was, any funny stories along the way. So it's really an opportunity for you to speak for however long you want, to be honest, and just tell us a bit about your life and what the journey's been like and what it's going to be in the future, hopefully, as well. So it's up to you, John. You can start right at the beginning, or you can jump in when you left school. It's really your call.
I'm happy to do that. The trouble is, at my age, this could take a very long time. Would you believe 60 years ago this very week I started to work, because I grew up in an upper working class household on the north side of Dublin, a place called Marino. And then we moved to Clontarf, where I still live and where this office is that I'm talking to you from. And this was in 1960. My father, who was a 44-year-old, died of a heart attack, which was unusual in 1960, but not rare. Mm-hmm. And I was the eldest of four. My mother was a young widow. So we had a small family business, which was insurance, a commission agent for the Royal Library. Some of your UK listeners would certainly remember that. And we had a tiny licensed money lender. So I had to do it by choice. I mean, my mother was 37, had never worked after she married at 21. And the next child was 10. So I had to do that. So I started to run this business at 14. And I don't know how we survived, but it gave me great confidence, as you can imagine. Now, we survived because I suppose lending money and getting it back, it's not the hardest thing in the world. In terms of school, I went to a Christian Brothers school. I was a scholarship boy, and I was a good student, not because I was super bright, but because I could concentrate. It's a great ability just to concentrate on what I was doing, and I still have that. So I can do a huge amount of work in a short time. I'm not distracted by other people or outside influences. It used to really upset my then girlfriend, now wife, that she'd be looking around the library, chewing mints and doing various things, and I'd be focused as if my life depended on what I was doing. I got a university scholarship, went to study commerce in UCD because, of course, I was running a small business at the time. Did well at that. Got a postgraduate scholarship to do a master's in economics, which was really finance. Did that and got a scholarship to the States to do an MBA at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, which was a big wrench to take. I had a girlfriend, but also I was leaving the family. But my two younger brothers, one of them very young, they manned up, as you have to in things like that. Yeah. Did the MBA in finance at Wharton, came back, and I was recruited back to the university from Wharton because this was now 68. There weren't that many American educated business people around, and they were setting up an MBA program in the university in Dublin, a very successful one. So I came back to teach finance, went back to the business. My skill at the time, if there was one, was that I was basically institutional finance. I like the stock market. Mm-hmm. And I was practicing it a little bit because I hadn't much money at the time. After about 18 months, they decided if I was going to be an academic, I better get a doctorate. I got a Ford Fellowship to Harvard, which was a very prestigious thing, but I wasn't really that happy to go. I was almost, I was 23. I then had to get engaged because I've been going out with Deirdre for about 7 or 8 years, and I wasn't let go back unless I got engaged. And had saved some money to buy an MGB GT, a second-hand one. I saw the company was silver MGB, but if I was going away, I couldn't do it. So I used the money to buy a small amount of money into each of 4 value shares. I'm a value investor if I ever do it anymore. The Benjamin Graham model of net assets. I spent about £1,700, which 3 years later when I came back had gone to about 11,000. So that was a good investment.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, that system works. Any of you have ever done value investment? Benjamin, the intelligent investor. It just works if you do it correctly. Came back to the university. It took me 5 years to finish the doctorate, 3 years in Boston, then commuting for 2 years while I was doing research. The interesting thing that you might have picked up is that while I was there doing research into Irish industrial development policy, I looked at the whiskey industry in Ireland, and it had gone from 60% of the world to having 2% of Scotch. Thought it was a good investment, but didn't have any money. Prior to me going back to Harvard in June 1970, I had been asked by the Tara Mining and Northgate Mining Company in Ireland, two of the big, well, it was only one zinc mine at that time, but both companies owned by the same group, in Clontarf, to join them to do discounted flat cash flows. This is something that school children do now. But at that stage, I was the only one in Ireland could do it. There were no calculators, no computers, nothing like that in 1969-70. So they put me into an office in 162 Clontarf Road in a newly opened building where I sit to this day. That's where I am calling you from. The small room, I'm in the same room for 51 years. Suits me, I'm from Clontarf. I live not too far away. My family, siblings are all around. So I came back again to the university, back to the mining company, which was Tara Mines, and speculated on the stock exchange quite actively during the 70s. Then the industry here, Tara Mines was discovered in 1970. It was a very fractious development. The government were against it, and there was all kinds of hassle. Didn't get a license till 77. Prospecting had died out in Ireland. Myself and another guy thought that we should get into this business. And what I had learned here was how to set up these small, high-risk exploration companies using high-risk capital. I could hire the local geologists who had worked for Tara and Northgate who were being laid go because prospecting slowed up. And I did that in 79, which is not known at all, into basically looking to recover zinc from lead tailings and zinc tailings because Bunker Hunt was going, silver went up to $50. Didn't get very far on it, didn't cost me a lot of money. But in 83, I set up the first exploration company. I raised a sum of 85,000 at that time from a variety of people who had followed me in the stock exchange. It was very small money. And with that, we took stakes in 3 companies that were being set up around that time. And that was very successful. One of those was Conroy, which is on the exchange now as a gold company. But at that time, it was a mineral, an oil and mining exploration company. And that discovered the mine adjacent to Lisheen in Ireland in 1986. The other one was a stake in Avoca, which still lists on the stock exchange. These were startup stakes. And the third stake, you're talking about maybe 30,000 into each of them, was in Kenmare, which I acquired from an English group who were going to liquidate it. I bought the shell. What I intended to do was very clear, and I'll go through this fairly quickly, was I knew that Ireland was very good for zinc and gold. We've been looking at gold since the late 70s. And I was able to recruit the geologist. To give you an example of it, I was sitting with one of my original partners at my kitchen table one afternoon, and a very senior geologist who'd lost his job was planting trees in my back garden and cutting the grass because he had to eat. So we called him in and we said, look, Des, if we gave you 15,000, 25,000 for a year, what could you do? And that led to the creation of Burman, which is now Ormond in Europe and SIPA in Australia. So that was the model I've tended to use all along, is we would fund the first year exploration. We give you as the geologist maybe 20% and you try and work on something for a year. At the end of the year, we would raise more money at a higher price, hopefully. And by the end of the third year, we would list on the stock exchange. That was the model that we followed. And it worked well. We have listed on AIM probably 15 companies, which is a lot over the years. And we were always in zinc. Zinc in Ireland, because it's highly prospective for zinc, probably the best in the world. And there's big zinc ore bodies in Ireland, and we understood it. And the political environment can be difficult at times, but is good. The rule of law applies. So one of the companies we set up was African Gold. Another one was Kenmare, which went back onto the stock market, which through various changes over time has become, it's still Kenmare. It now is the 5th biggest titanium producer in the world. I'm long out of it. I'm out of it since 2001. I've exited from most of these companies, as you do. So we set up Minco, and we took over another shell called Irish Marine Oil, which we put into gold in Wicklow, where I am again. And you'd imagine you'd learn, but I haven't. And so we had some zinc licenses in Minco and some gold licenses in Irish Marine Oil. We put them together into Minco. That in fact, invested in the joint venture in Limerick on the Palace Green zinc discovery, the very big one there, which went through about 5 owners, the majority partner, and ended up with Glencore some years ago, and they bought out the Minco stake in that. So really, we were zinc and some gold in Ireland from the 80s. We went into Africa looking for gold in Zimbabwe. Tough enough. It was hard enough. It's a fabulous country geologically, difficult every other way. That ended up with us kind of moving across the border, trying to bring our staff and our equipment into Botswana. The gold wasn't good in Botswana, but the diamond exploration, ultra high risk. So we set up African Diamonds, which discovered the Lucara diamond mine, fabulous discovery with De Beers in 2004. We were bought out of that in 2011. And we took the exploration assets, which is Botswana Diamonds to this day. And in Ireland, times were hard with in the zinc. Just times were hard in the industry. Zinc wasn't of great interest. So licenses came up around in Limerick, adjacent to the Palace Green discovery, and the then partner, Aranda, didn't want us to take them. So myself and Jim Finn, my colleague, in the same office as me here, we took the licenses privately. It was 5 or 6 licenses. And a couple of years later, Teck came along and said they'd like to joint venture those licenses. And we listed those as Connemara, then now Arkle. Very interesting reason, which I didn't see, shows you, experience doesn't teach you that much, is the epic for Connemara on the stock exchange was CON. And then somebody pointed out to us in the last few years, con wasn't a great thing to try and get venture capital for, or risk capital. So it became Arkle, ARK. Yep. And in addition to that, we developed a couple of oil exploration ones. So we still have Botswana working in Botswana Diamonds, working in Botswana, South Africa. We have a company in oil which has some exploration interest in Ghana and Iraq, and we have a second one which has exploration interest in Ghana and Bolivia, where we were for a long time. They're struggling enough because they're early stage exploration. And we kept going on that. I set up the whiskey business in '86 from my original 1970s research in Boston. And that took a long time to get well. Now it's going very well, thank God. We sold our first 3 distilleries in 2011 there to Jim Beam, now Suntory. And we have 2 more where I was earlier this morning in Dundalk. And my sons have a branded business here in Dublin. So that part of it has gone well. I don't do anymore, and I'm nearly finished. I apologize for this.
No, it's fine.
I don't do the net value investment very much anymore. I've done a little bit of it, a tiny amount of it in recent years, and in general has been good. It's a model where you buy shares whose net assets per share is above the market price, and the rule is you sell when it reaches the net asset when the price rises. I've nearly been right. Where I've broken my own rule, I've ended up getting caught. And if you were a very disciplined investor, you can make a lot of money over time with it. Definitely, it's a very good method. It's known since the 30s. And I'm not doing much of it anymore. So my current interests are the whiskey companies, a couple of other minimal industrial interests, and the 4 exploration companies. And the one that I'm kind of executive chairman of is Arkle.
Yeah, obviously.
So by the way, I taught in the university for 20 years. I left it in 1988 when the amount of outside work I was getting was just becoming too heavy. I couldn't commit to that after that.
Yeah, we'll come on to Arkle soon, John. But
sure.
I mean, you said you've been working for 60 years, but you still managed to fit a hell of a lot into 60 years. I mean, how many?
I actually think you haven't. I would imagine almost none of your listeners have worked for 60 years. It's a very long time. It really is. And the world is totally different. And even if you did 1 or 2, I've looked at a CV of my own. I sat down at one stage and did a big long one out. Nobody is interested in it. Not even my children or grandchildren. My wife maybe would read it. And that's a fact, sadly. I would have been involved in 30 startups in that time. Now, that I'll accept as unusual, but it's a long time. And I hope I'm not finished. I have some idea.
No, I think as you say, we're living in a new world now, and a lot of people don't want to retire. And I know there's a lot of opportunities to travel and stuff like that, but there seems to be a lot of them. I'm saying your generation are quite happy to work on into the 70s, and I mean, obviously you were talking about Conroy Gold earlier on. Obviously, Richard Conroy, I think, is actually in his 80s. Yeah, you know what I mean. So it's
if I'm lucky enough now, you're required to be lucky on 2 fronts. One, you need to be mentally healthy and physically healthy, and with the best will in the world, bits break and fall off. Certainly physically, they're not mentally, and I will certainly like to keep doing. I don't play golf. I don't back horses. I've never owned a horse, never eaten them either. I hope, no. And I don't own a boat, which is unusual in Ireland. So I don't. So I don't have. I played rugby till I was in my mid-60s, which, with hindsight now, wasn't so good from injuries. But anyway, I got fabulous value out of that, and wonderful value as a release from stress when you're making the wrong investment decisions. So if I am lucky enough, I will stay in control. Now, you have to put in management teams. And I have a management team in Botswana Diamonds, which is a very good team, and a management team in the distilleries, quite a number of them. And we will develop, hopefully, with Arkle. Now, when it's just purely exploration, then you can kind of do it remotely because you tend to employ consultants and advisors rather than full-time executives, which cost you a lot of money. So the money you raise tends to be going into overhead rather than into exploration. But with luck, I can keep going for a few more years. With luck.
Yeah. You sound as if you're full of energy in life. So
I've been always lucky. Absolutely. Yeah. Don't ask me. Even, when I wasn't fit or anything like that, I've had lots of energy. I don't know why that is. That's just genetics.
Yeah, well, I'm just laughing because Mark's only 32, I think, John. So yes, so
30. I don't even have a child that young. My youngest child is 40.
Right, yeah.
You've got a long time to work, so you have, Mark.
Apparently, yeah.
You may have to, the way the world is going.
Definitely. But the whiskey's interesting, John, because obviously I'm from Scotland, and I'm heading up the Spey Valley tomorrow. I'm going away for a few days, and obviously there's a great whiskey trail up the Spey Valley. So there's plenty of distilleries. So.
Well, I'm sorry for your trouble that it's only Scots you know about. I mean, it's the Scots took it from the Irish. I don't mean this. I'm just trying to stir you.
Yeah.
The original whiskey was Irish, and it's a very different whiskey, as some of your listeners will certainly know, in that for reasons I really don't fully understand, and I've looked at this since 1970. In 1601, Queen Elizabeth I gave a warrant to Berry Brothers and Rudd in... It's at St. James's Place. It's in Mayfair anyway. The building is still there. The company is still there 420 years later. And she said she preferred Irish aquavit over all others because it was more mellow and less fiery on the stomach. And that to this day is true. Irish whiskey is mellow and very easy to drink. Funny thing is, the more you drink, the easier it gets. Now, that could be true of many things. But certainly it's been very good. But it had fallen out of favour because of things, again, some of you will know, there was a new technology came in and the Irish companies wouldn't adapt it. They said, we know how to make whiskey. Anybody who wants to make it another way is stupid and it's not whiskey. But of course, the new way, the Scots took to it with alacrity. And by the end of the 19th century, never mind the 20th, the end of the 19th century, they dominated the world whiskey industry. And we declined from, at one stage, 1,200 distilleries in Ireland to one in the late 60s. Wow. Only one, a monopoly.
One.
There's now 30. It's growing fast again. It appeals, Irish whiskey appeals to young drinkers, 22 to 39. It's a very good business. I think some of you know I don't drink, so I've never tasted it. And so I'm only talking about what it has to do. But we try to make whiskey that people want to drink, not that any of us would like.
I've never drank Irish whiskey, and I must admit I'm not a fan of Scotch whiskey, so maybe I should give it a go.
Irish whiskey, did you ever drink bourbon?
Yeah, I have had bourbon.
Yeah, well, now Irish whiskey is more similar to bourbon than it is to Scotch.
Okay.
It's relatively sweeter.
Okay.
But most of the Irish whiskies are very easy to drink. Now, okay, if you drink an expensive Irish malt, it's heavier. But if you drink a blend or drink a single grain, try the Teeling single grain, you'll find it very easy to drink. Really is.
Yeah, well, that's a problem with some of the Scottish whiskey. So I've got a bottle of Lefroy in the back of the car, and that's such a hard drink because it's so peaty.
Well, it's an acquired taste. It's like Guinness. Yeah.
It's almost like a guilty pleasure. You don't like it, but you've got to have another one just to remind yourself of how hard the drink it is.
It's on allocation, and the older the bottle and the more expensive the bottle, the bigger the demand. It's a wonderful thing. It's called a backward curving demand slope. It's a wonderful thing. Increase the price and increases the demand. It's a very successful company.
Yeah, definitely. But no, whiskey, I just have a couple occasionally. I don't. It's not my typical of choice. But there we go. But you still squeeze a lot into 60 years. So you did, John. It's quite an achievement for what you've done in that.
Lucky, and rest assured, it's serendipity and luck. I never had a problem, and again, this is genetic. If I saw something I believed in, that was it. I put my money and myself into it. So you can call it enterprise or risk-taking or whatever. I never had a problem with that, ever. And I still don't. They say you get more sensible with age, but I haven't got sensible yet. I really haven't. And again, as I say, that is not something you can acquire. I really believe that entrepreneurs are born with a kind of a weird gene, but it needs to be promoted and developed. And after you do the first one, I mean, I was running a little company before I was 15 and having to take decisions because my mother supported me, but the lady was fantastic, but she didn't know anything about it. And we survived and we made a few bob. I mean, a few bob. But so once you can do that, I think you can do most things.
And
I don't second guess myself.
Yeah, it's always a good method. And what about Botswana Diamonds? And I'm interested in that because I'm familiar with that. What's the story with that company?
Very interesting. It's one I like also. In that the logic, where did it come from? I was sitting under an awning at the edge of the Kalahari in 2002, and the guy with me, a fella called Leon Daniels, who was a well-known diamond explorer. He had 3 gold licenses, which he showed to me. And I said, yeah, Leon, they're no good. I don't want them. And I was drinking Tab. Any of you from South Africa will know that they still sell Tab made by Coca-Cola. It was an old zero-calorie product. This was Tab. And he said, I have a couple of diamond licenses. So I said, tell you what, we'll raise £200,000 now. We'll give you 20% for the first year. You go out and you take those licenses and try and do something with them. And we see what happens. We'll risk the 200,000. That became African Diamonds. And within the year, De Beers joint ventured with us on those licenses. And in November 2004, on the first drill hole on the license, now it was a drill hole, a license that had been drilled before, but the first new drill hole hit this wonderful, hole. I got a call from Bill McKechnie, the then Worldwide Exploration Director of De Beers, November 2004. It's a fabulous feeling, fellas. I hope some of you have got a wonderful feeling. It's probably better than anything else. They said, John, I think we have a commercial diamond discovery. And the chances are like 1 in 2,500. That became the Lucara mine. We stayed in it too long, should have sold it earlier, but we did very well. We probably made, some people would have made up to 100 times the money, but the average investor probably made about 25 times. But they spun off, Lundin Group bought it. It's a fabulous, some of you know that the third and fifth biggest diamonds ever discovered have been discovered in that mine. It's a diamond exploration companies, are totally out of favor at the moment. So we've gone with James Campbell joined us, who is ex-De Beers, ex-African Diamonds. He's been running Botswana Diamonds.
Okay, James. Yeah, I know James.
We've licenses in Botswana, fairly advanced ones that we worked with Dalrosa in a joint venture, the Russian diamond company. They've changed tack now. They've gone more commercial, like De Beers. So they're interested in the value added on the diamonds rather than finding them. And we'll do some exploration there. We also have a joint venture with a Botswana company where there's been some interesting discoveries. We had diamonds in 4 of 5 drill holes. It's again in the Kalahari, but we recently acquired, which I'm very interested in, the KX36, which had been owned by Petra. Petra developed a very big 18 million carats, but it's in the Kalahari. And, Petra grew too large, flew too close to the sun, too much debt. So they spun it off to us. We will be working on that over the while. And we're looking at another joint venture in Botswana. But to try and pay the bills, feed the cat, we are working in a late stage vein diamond operation, diamond dikes in northern South Africa, a place called Thorny River next door to Marsfontein. We've started to drill today. We started to do very specific geophysics. We've 9 holes to be drilled starting, I think, the 2nd of November.
Okay.
Now, it's good. Now, I'm saying it's good. I'm a promoter, and it's high-risk diamond exploration, but it's not bad, not a bad one.
Well, taking your net asset approach, how would you say? I know you're a promoter of Botswana Diamonds, but it's a 5 million market cap. So could we say that's a value buy?
No, it's not under the model now. No, don't confuse, because it has no assets.
Okay.
Liabilities. The net asset model means you take the balance sheet, you write off all the fixed assets, and you include the current debt, all debt, and you do it per share. So you have, if you like, you'd have the net current assets per share minus all long-term debt per share, and whatever is left is it. And you don't do that in exploration companies.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I see.
No, it doesn't. I wish it did, but it doesn't.
But for an exploration company, though, okay, maybe it's a good play.
As an exploration company, it is a very good speculation. These are speculative. It's diamond exploration. It's advanced in a couple of its projects. I particularly like this KX36 because I think we're going to find Petra ran out of money before they could drill around it, and you never find a kimberlite on its own. I don't think ever. So we will drill that licenses, and we've acquired the 2 licenses beside it. Now it'll be challenging in the Kalahari, but it could be quite a substantial. Maybe it's 18 million carats at the moment. It could be a bit bigger than that, and that's a lot. So it's a very interesting one. We're at the early stage. We have to get Botswana government approval. I can say this now because, in fact, I think we got kind of indications just earlier this week that approval is shortly forthcoming to acquire it.
Okay.
All right, well, moving closer to home then, John, we'll probably focus for the rest of the podcast on Arkle. Now, obviously, you mentioned earlier on that a previous existence as Connemara. Can you maybe give us the background of how that company was set up? I know you said previously you'd taken a couple of licenses private, so I assume that was the start.
It was. If you can think back over what I've said to you, I started in this office in zinc exploration in 1969. That was the year before Tara was discovered. So I've been right through almost all the discoveries in Ireland. And you learn a little bit by osmosis, if nothing else. So I was always interested in zinc exploration. And in terms of, we've gold assets in Arkle, which I come to, and the zinc. Now, the discoveries around Limerick have been known for a long time. A number of companies have discovered. What they're looking for down there is a bonanza type zinc discovery, not like 10 million tons or 20 million tons. But Falconbridge, then Aranda, then Extrata, and now Glencore invested. There's about 400 holes drilled in Palace Green across the river, literally across the road. They have about 50 million tons of zinc ore at 8% combined. very good, huge deposit. The licenses on the other side of the road came up when times were hard and Noranda didn't want to take them. And rather than let them go, myself and Jim Finn took hold of those licenses and kept them. We were able to get them under incentives from the Irish government. That meant only £2,000 per year per license. It was the expenditure needed to keep them. So you could keep them for 6 years at very minimal expenditure. And we did that. We've also, on the other side of it, we've had interest in Minco, which was zinc across, as I said, across the road. And we had interest, Irish Marine Oil was a company that had the licenses, the gold licenses in Wicklow, just down literally the hills that I can see from my office here. And we held the licenses, and then Teck came into Ireland and asked, would we joint venture these licenses with them? And they've done a very good job, fabulous company. Over the years, we've drilled 135, maybe a little more now, 35 holes on what's called Stone Park. This will be 50 meters from the Glencore discovery, literally the other side of the main Dublin to Limerick road. And our first couple of holes called Stone Park North, we had very good, kind of a hole now that really helps you. 25% zinc and 7% lead over 5 meters. I mean, that's outrageous.
Yeah.
Fabulous. We thought at this stage we'd all be living in Monte Carlo now. Didn't work out that way. We kept drilling in Stone Park North. They found a couple more. Then they stepped out about a meter, 1.7 kilometers, and found Stone Park West. And that had another wing. Now, one of the problems with Irish zinc has been that it tends to come in pods. Even the Glencore discovery across the road, it's in pods. High-grade, rich pods. And all of them, with one exception in Ireland, is like that. The Tara deposit, which I've been involved in, or was from 70 to 85, was a huge, big lump. That's all you can call it. A massive lump. It was 400 meters thick, I think. Some incredible thing. And so sometimes the pods are huge, like at Lachine, huge, and silver mines. Sometimes they're not that big. So we found the pod, and we wanted to join the two pods. They wouldn't join, so we moved a bit to the west, and we found Stone Park West, another pod. So we have a JORC-compliant resource of over 5 million tonnes there at 11%, which is very good. That's good. It's a nice flat-lying deposit, 200 to 300 meters, very easy. Teck stepped out a long way and drilled a deep hole, because the belief always was, and remains to this day, that the type of geology you're getting there is at the edge of a big system. Irish zinc tends to be big systems. And I'm not a geologist, so I'm going to talk as best I can. And that you could be on the edges of something very substantial. And that's believed by some more partners at this stage. And they drilled a 1,000-meter hole through some bauxite cover. Didn't finish the hole and cemented it up. They just lost interest. And they just carried it from there on. They sold their interest to a Canadian company called Group 11, which bought up any licenses they could in the so-called Limerick Basin. So again, to the southeast of us, they bought the Carrick-Kittle ground, where they recently drilled and found some really good results. Now, those results would have been similar to the ones discovered in the early 70s. So it's not a big shock that they're high zinc bearing. We drilled a hole last year on our side of this license. Carrick-Kittle is on one side, Stone Park, or our licenses, are on the other, called Kilteely, with a very good discovery, but more indicative of the big system than high-grade zinc. We are currently drilling two holes, one about 400 meters each, one between the north and the south pod, and those results will be in shortly. And then we're drilling another one to the one we're drilling now is to the south, literally an extension hole from the southwest, and then the hole that we're about to start is between the two pods. We be hopeful that we will get we should get some good results there. At the same time, I think Group 11 is about to announce a series of holes on the Carrick-Kittle license, marching up to our border. And then the next day would probably want to drill close to Kilteely. So it's very exciting in terms of the geology. But, the geology takes time, and you need the funding for it. So it's certainly very attractive at the moment. there's been some interest in it. I'm not saying anything that wasn't publicized. A number of companies talked to us about maybe acquiring the joint venture between ourselves and Group 11. We're partial to anybody who wants to do more exploration. Group 11, who have licenses to either side of us, are not happy to do maybe just a joint venture on the one license, on the one block of ground. They'd rather do it over the whole thing. So we're working our way through that. Some very big companies are interested in this area, and the why is very simple. You're looking at the possibility of an extremely large zinc discovery, which would come on market at maybe 6,000 tons a day, a very significant zinc supplier in the EU, in an area that has all infrastructure is present. In fact, the main road passes, as I said, between Palace Green and Stone Park. The railway is right there as well. There's plenty of water. So it's a very good area. Now, you still have to go through the planning. It's a rich agricultural area. So that's a challenge in Ireland on that. But certainly Stone Park is a fabulous asset to have in Arkle, and we're delighted that they're drilling. I suspect that we will have further drilling, probably not now until the spring after these two holes.
Yeah. Now, I'm just trying to rack my brains, John. So Group 11.
Group 11 is an TSX company. And they are 20. They're a 76% partner. We're 24% partner.
Yeah,
and we're paying away at the moment.
Did they not recently get some funding from a major? I'm trying to remember.
Yes, they did. I think it's you're well done. You're exactly right. They got two, which we were only partially happy about in late last year, because zinc funding has been hard to come by. Glencore took a 20% interest in them.
That was it, yeah.
And they recently increased that in the most recent funding. Up, I think, I'm not sure, but it could be as far as 29 or 30%. Different rules on the TSX, yes. So Glencore is protecting its flanks.
Yeah, I suppose it's a double-edged sword.
I'm not party to what discussions are going on at all between Glencore and Group 11, but there have been external companies, certainly 3 have talked to both of us about becoming involved in Limerick Zinc, simply because of the size of it.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely exciting, because obviously there's majors in the area. There's drilling going on, and you guys are perfectly positioned to.
Well, it would be wonderful if Glencore, who don't have to, Glencore have, I think, at all times between 6 and 8 and 10 rigs drilling, but it's a small part of their company, so they don't make any announcements. So all we hear is kind of anecdotal or scuttlebutt that they've expanded here or had a hit there. You can't prove or say anything, but it's a very good area. We have 6 licenses; they have more than that. So there's huge potential, but huge potential requires a lot of drill holes.
Yep, and obviously, but this cost comes with that as well. But all right, we'll park the zinc for the moment, and obviously, you guys have 2 gold assets as well. You've got one in Donegal, and the other one, which I think is, just looking at my geography of Ireland, it's in the
just south of us,
southwest. Here. Yeah, southwest Ireland.
Yeah, no, southeast.
Southeast, yeah, you're right. So yeah.
So anyway, otherwise I'm drilling in the wrong licenses now. That would be great.
So the Wicklow one is obviously, I would say that's probably the flagship gold project for Arkle at the moment.
It should be. I have been there in various guises since 1986. But indeed, anybody who's ever really been involved in Irish exploration would have some connection there, because there was a gold mine there between 1796 and 1800. All kinds of stories about it. And there's gold in the rivers, but the actual source has never been discovered. You get some, it's a vein gold, so some of the veins are quite small, maybe only 10 or 20 centimeters, which is not great, but they can be extremely high grade. There's some wonderful nuggets, as big as your thumb, not your thumbnail, your thumb, have come out of that area. We have about a strike of about 15 kilometers there. We've spent a good bit of money, and we've taken over various bits and pieces. We have just, yet again, because if it's a 30 centimeter vein and you go 35 centimeters, you've got nothing. So we have run a new kind of soil sampling technique, very close every 20 meters, and a handheld analyzer, so you know where you're going very quickly. We've just finished that. We're looking now at doing some more trenching, where the main hotspot is between a place called Tom Breen and Knocknallure. And it has been for a while. This is known. And we've drilled there and had, limited success. You get one, you'd miss one, which is always a teaser in exploration. But this has given us some new targets, which we're probably going to trench now very quickly, and then we will have to drill. It's a very good area. We have a big block of ground there. You're looking for a very high grade, but small volume gold mine is what you're looking for. Donegal is very different and very interesting and very new. Donegal has the same geology as Dalradian across the border in Tyrone. That's a 6 million ounce resource company that was listed. It was a public company, and then was taken private by a pension fund at, I think, a value of about 500 million. And very, very big. 6 million ounces in the British Isles, that's a lot, of which about 2.7 million, I think, is proven. They're applying for planning, and they've been going around in circles. So we followed a very advanced geological technique called closeology. Take the ground, the nearest ground you can get to the discovery. And we took a bunch of licenses in Donegal, which had really never been drilled, never been explored for gold. And we followed the second great dictum of geology. Best place to find a mine is where there is a mine or was a mine. And we went to an old mine called Glentocker, which was a silver zinc mine in the late 18th century, 1790 something. And it had some small amounts of gold. We drilled some, drilled some holes and had one or two very good discoveries, again in veins. We then had a rush of blood to the head, and we drilled about 8 kilometers away and found nothing. So in other words, the veins didn't follow any particular pattern that we knew. We have, again, just finished, literally in the last couple of weeks, we've just finished a detailed soil sampling near Glentocker. Around it, we're going back to where we should be. And we are going to, in the next couple of weeks, you need government approval. We're going to start putting in trenches. We'd like to do this before, deepest winter. Trenches to try and find the way the veins are going. It's a very interesting thing is, again, one hears rumors that there's corporate activity on the Dalradian discovery across the border, which will be good for us. But gold in Ireland has been very hot. You've seen Conroy there on the border. And there's another little company, IMC, and there's a small mine working in the north of Ireland called Galantas. It's owned by the guy who has Cloggo Gold in Wales. And David something or another. So there is a lot of interest in gold, but it's the best, as you all know, the only true lie detector is a drill hole. All the other stuff, we have to drill holes, and that'll tell you what you have.
So, Ireland, from what I sort of know, doing some stuff with Conroy, there's a long history of gold mining in Ireland. But presently, is there much going on gold-wise apart from sort of the ones you sort of mentioned?
There are a number of companies prospecting for gold, and there have been some very good gold discoveries. Again, in the same geology as Dalradian, I think it's called the Dalradian Trend, up around Sligo and Mayo. There was a good gold discovery with a company called Glencar some years ago. It was in an area of natural beauty and St. Patrick's Holy Mountain, so that didn't get too far. The last gold mine in Ireland was estimated to be in Clare in the 9th century. Now, okay, you can believe some of that or not. The most prospective ground for gold has traditionally been this Wicklow-Wexford Trend where we are. I mean, there's been huge money spent. Rio Tinto spent 20 million alone on it. And there's plenty of gold there. It needs work. We had a Canadian partner. The man passed, so they disappeared. Outside of that, in terms of gold license, there's some interest. A couple of Australian juniors are working in the west of Ireland. But certainly the most advanced is Dalradian in the north. The second one is probably now, I say between ourselves, Conroy and Fermanagh, in Monaghan, Fermanagh, and ourselves in Wicklow. There's money being spent on gold. It's kind of an exciting area at the moment. And we are going to try to focus on these two areas rather than expand the ground at the moment, to see if we can get something more concrete in Donegal, because it's never been explored before in any kind of detail.
Yeah, actually, I love Donegal, John. I've probably holidayed 5 or 6 times in Donegal.
Really?
So I have. It's It's a great place. There's
Well,
never.
this is the Inishowen Peninsula.
Yeah. I've been like Buttonport, Bunbeg, Downings, which is not probably that far from where you guys are.
Oh no, it's not at all. Actually, ahead of me, I've never holidayed in Donegal. Sorry, I shouldn't say that.
Yeah.
But never on holiday.
Yeah, my friend for a long time, then for university, worked with him for 10 years. His girlfriend, his partner, is family is brought up in Donegal, and he goes there regularly to go back to see them.
You fellas should know. Well, when you're going over there, go to the site. Have a look for Glen Tucker on the map, and there's a small adit from a silver lead mine in the late 1700s, early 1800s. That's where we are.
Yeah, I'm due to go back. I've not been for a couple of years, but I'm due to go back.
There'll be a Donegal trip coming up then, eh?
What are you saying?
I can feel a Donegal trip on the cards coming.
It's a bit harder now because we used to travel down to Troon and get the ferry across, but they binned that ferry, so you've got to go all the way to Stranraer now. So it makes it a really long
journey. Yeah,
you could probably get halfway across the world and quicker than you can get.
Oh, don't be like that. They have a tiny airport. Fly to Donegal Airport.
Yeah, what I done the last time was we all flew into Belfast and we just hired 2 cars.
That's the easiest, yeah. And it's a good road right across, yeah.
Yeah, it was so much easier and it was dirt cheap. So we'll probably do it again, probably next year, hopefully, if this COVID situation clears up and we can.
It will.
We'll get holidaying again. So just maybe just to finish up, John, what's the roadmap like for Arkle in the next sort of 6 to 9 months? I know it's quite hard to predict with all the COVID.
Yes, I mean it does, and it impacts on getting your permits because none of the bureaucrats are working. They're working from home, and to get a series that just takes time. The guys out in the fields, they're not going to get COVID. They get hypothermia before they get cold. Before they get COVID. We won't be able to do that much further work from December to the end of February. It is really hard to work in the Highlands, as you should know, and to work in maybe Highlands might be the end of March in Donegal. We can continue to do a bit of work in Wicklow, but I don't like the short days because it's dark from it only gets bright about 9. It's getting dark by 4, so it means quite inefficient in terms of work. So we will do this work. We will try and get the trenches in, get the results of that, and plan where we would want to drill in the spring in both licenses. I'm kind of very excited by Donegal because it's early stage and you have great potential. We know what we're doing in Wicklow. It's a question of expanding on what we know. I think that I'm hoping that the 2 holes we're currently drilling will show at least one good result, and that will tend to extend the 5.1 million tons. We want to extend one or more of the lobes of these pods, I should say. I think there is a very good chance of there being some corporate activity. Isn't that a wonderful phrase? Because I don't have to explain it. I think there are people talking to us, and more people, not more, say one talking to us and another 1 or 2 who would like to talk to us. Again, subject to travel restrictions and things like that. It's very hard to do due diligence by podcast or by telephone or by Zoom. Yeah. So people will have to see us, so that could take some time. I would be very surprised if by 6 months from here now, by the end of April, that there hasn't been some significant developments in the company.
Yeah, I was just going to come on to the sort of market cap as well. I mean, what a phrase, it's cheap as chips at 2 million quid.
Well, the reason, and that you can blame myself and Jim Finn. We owned 100% of the company. Then it was joint ventured with Tech spending all of the money. We listed it, and the 2 of us held probably 50%. And the only other investors were Irish friends, family. Mm-hmm. And so we don't have a big shareholder base in the UK. Now, we've expanded a bit in recent times, but we're still quite small, and we're never a big UK company in terms of volatility. Now, we have a UK director, David Cockbill, has joined us, and hopefully that will expand our coverage in the UK and will expand. We need UK shareholders. You need a minimum number of shareholders before you can get some interest and excitement in the share.
Yeah, but it's still, when you look at some of I'm not going to mention some of the shares that have up in recent months because it wouldn't be fair. But it's probably primed. It's probably one of the lowest priced exploration and development companies out there. So it should be attracting interest. So hopefully this podcast.
I hope you're right.
Help along the way. So
Thank you.
Mark, do you want to put John in the spot because we forgot to warn him about this?
Mark, on the 60-second one.
Yeah, you might as well just spring it and John out of the blue. I'm sure he'll be fine with it. He's a very accomplished talker.
Well, I'll brief you on it, John. What we often do when we get directors on is ask them to do a 60-second pitch of the company, sort of a pitch to investors as to why Arkle is a potentially good investment. So if you're up for that, I can count you down from 3, and then you sort of have about 60 seconds to sum up. So in 3, 2, 1, take it away.
Arkle is an Irish-based gold and zinc explorer. It has advanced stage projects in both gold and zinc. In zinc, where it's drilling at the moment, it has 5 million tonnes in partnership with Group 11 in Limerick, and we would hope to expand that. It's next door to the very large Glencore discovery in Palace Green. In gold, we have the Wicklow Gold, where we are about to begin some trenching following on very good results from soil sampling. And in Donegal, which is earlier stage, this is a similar geology to the Alradian discovered in Tyrone. We're about to start trenching also, to be followed by drilling. And in terms of other activity, there is some corporate interest in the company at the moment. So for the next 6 months, it should be quite an exciting time for Arkle. It's well funded.
Great. Perfect. That was good. That was good, John. Well, yeah, thank you. I mean, listen, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I'm going to order up myself some Teeling single grain and see what I make of it. And
let me know if you have good things to say. Don't bother if you're bad.
I've got bad. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And yeah, what a great little chat about your past and of course Arkle. Very interesting.
Thank you. We'll be watching with great interest. Thank you, fellas.
Okay. Thanks for your time, John. Appreciate it.
All the best. It's my pleasure. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to another podcast from Market Musings with Fairbairn and Russell.